This video is about React State. React State is just a special category of variables that the React infrastructure pays attention to know when to re-render your components. This video is about React State. And here's a couple of thoughts. What are the main things about state? What and where is state? And then, how do I alter a state value? So let's begin with number one. What is state and where is it? State is an object containing attributes with values, period. That's not too complicated. And there's a local version of state for each component instance. And what it's saying here, if you instantiate 10 copies of my class here, my React component, CL show text, there's going to be a unique copy of the state object for each of those 10 objects. And the most common place you'll see it defined and initialized is in the constructor. C++, Java people will have no problem with this. The class syntax came new in ES6, ECMAScript 6, or ES 2015, and is widely and promoted to be used with React. So the constructor method gets called, invoked every time you instantiate a brand new CL show text component. And as you can see here, it's defining in the state, this.state, an attribute called counter with a value of 0. What's the other point? Key point number 2, altering the state. You never directly code a change to a statement element. You always call the React setState method to alter a state element, and this is what it looks like. This.setState, open paren, it's a method call, function call. Counter, this.state, counter plus 1. I'm cranking up the value of counter by 1. So what's the big deal about these state values? They're just variables. Here's the big deal, folks. React infrastructure monitors these state values for changes that are made by calling the setState function, and React will eventually invoke the render method function of the component where the state resides. What's that eventually bit all about? All that is saying is that when you call setState, the setState is a, inverted commas, asynchronous change. There's an example coming up, one of the example HTML files where you actually change the state several times, but the render doesn't get called every time you change the state. React is clever. It says, well, when you're done and finished changing the state 19 times, I will then render it just once to reflect the 19th change. That's good. That's efficient. So here's the other big deal point about state you'll hear. If you've got a value that's being displayed, it's a good idea, not necessary and not always, to actually have the value that's being displayed on the screen defined as a state, so that if it ever changes, the React infrastructure takes the responsibility of refreshing your screen by virtue of calling and invoking the render method on that component over again to cause the screen to be updated. Or rather, to be exact, to have that component re-rendered, just that small portion of your screen. Here's a simple example. We have a screen with a button with the word increment on it, and every time you click it, the number goes up by 1. A reminder, folks, all of these examples you're seeing me discuss are available for download, unzipping, and running immediately. My strategy here is to give you working examples that you can analyze and expand on. So here's a simple example. We're in the render method, the code on the bottom left, and all we're looking at here is the super important, don't you like the way I say that? Because it is the super important return statement. It's returning a div, and inside that div I've got a button, a classic HTML button with the word increment you can see. It's got a method that says when you click it, execute the add1 method, but the value that's being displayed is the interesting part here. It's saying, please display whatever is in this.state.counter. Here's how life began in the constructor. It started off as 3, and follow the numbers. You click the increment button, that invokes the method add1, the function add1. And look what it does. It does one thing. It calls this dot set state, and it says whatever is the current value, add 1. That gets React all jittery and excited. It sees a change in a state variable, and that will cause the render method to be invoked on the object, the React component, which contains that state value. So the render method will get invoked. The all-important return statement will get actioned. And what does it do? Repaints the button and redisplays the contents of this .state.counter, which, golly gosh, has gone up by 1.